You're welcome again to Storytime with Mrs Ibiwoye. How have you been? My little genius. Alright. Can you see my beautiful smile? I want you to smile for me too and give yourself a pat at the back and say, I am special. That is very good. Today, we'll be looking at another interesting story. And the title is Little Red Riding Hood. Little Red Riding Hood. She was given the name because she always wears the hood that the grandma made for her, and people named her Little Red Riding Hood. One day, Little Red Riding Hood and her mother heard that grandma was ill. You must go to see her, said her mother, and take out this basket of fruit. So, Little Red Riding Hood set off. In her basket were fresh eggs, honey, and homemade bread for her grandma. I'm glad I have my red cloak and hood, she thought, and she skipped along. I like wearing it because it was grandma who made it for me. In fact, she wore it so much that everybody called her Red Riding Hood instead of a proper name. Near Little Riding Hood's cottage were some woods where she was not allowed to play because it's dangerous. But because she was anxious about her grandma, Little Red Riding Hood decided to take the path through the woods instead of following the road. I could get to Grandma's cottage much quicker this way, she thought to herself. It was lovely in the wood that day, and Red Riding Hood stopped to gather some pretty flowers for her grandma. They would cheer her up, she said to herself. I'll tell her all about the rabbits and the squirrel and how friendly they are. But the friendly rabbits and squirrel were not the only animals in the wood that day. A big bad wolf was also out and about looking for his dinner. When he caught the sight of Red Riding Hood through the trees, his nose twitched and his ears prickled up with interest. He quietly crept up behind a tree next to the spot where Red Riding Hood was picking flowers, and then stepped out beside her. Good day to you, little girl, he said in a voice so soft and friendly that Red Riding Hood stopped being alarmed. Where are you going with your basket and flowers on this fine day? Little Red Riding Hood told him all about a sick grandma in the cottage on the far side of the wood. I should go and visit her as well, said the wolf. Let's see which of us gets there first. Away he ran, and it wasn't long before he was knocking on Grandma's door. Who is it? The old lady called out in a weak voice. It's me, Grandma, the wolf replied in a small voice, pretending to be Little Red Riding Hood. Then just lift the latch and come in there, said Grandma. Grandma has been sick, so her voice is now very weak. No sooner was the big bad wolf inside the cottage, and he gobbled up the old lady. Then he searched for about until he found a bonnet and shawl to put on. That should do nicely, he said, looking in a mirror. The big wolf disguised like Grandma. After the wolf had finished admiring his disguise, he went over to the big bed and hopped in. Comfortably settled, he dragged the sheets right up to his black nose, pulled the old lady's cap down over his eyes and waited. Meanwhile, Little Red Riding Hood ran fast as she could until at last there she was at her grandma's cottage. When he heard a gentle knock, the big bad wolf called, "Lift the latch and come in there." Little Red Riding Hood was smiling as she pushed the door. "Here I am, Grandma," she cried. "Wait until you see what lovely things Mom has sent and all my pretty flowers." Little Red Riding Hood was surprised to see how untidy the cottage was. Grandma must be too poorly tired to tidy up, she said to herself. It looked as if Grandma was asleep, so Little Red Riding Hood put on a basket and took out the eggs, honey, and the homemade bread before finding a pretty vase for the flowers. "At last," she said quietly. "Grandma, are you awake?" "Of course I am, dear," a croaky voice answered from the big bed. "Then let me show you what Mom has sent," said Red Riding Hood. "There is honey and fresh eggs and homemade bread, and I picked some pretty blue flowers for you." And she began to tiptoe towards the bed. "Come closer," whispered the wicked wolf. "Come closer and give your old granny a hug." "But Grandma, what big arms have you got?" she exclaimed. "All the better to hug you with, my dear," said the wolf. "And Grandma, what big ears have you got?" cried Little Red Riding Hood, staring. "All the better to hear you with," said the wolf. "And Grandma," whispered Little Red Riding Hood, "what big teeth you have got." "And all the better to eat you with," growled the big bad wolf. With that, the wolf sprang out of Grandma's bed, and the Little Red Riding Hood ran for the door of the cottage to try to escape. The hungry wolf chased after Little Red Riding Hood, but before he could catch her, the old lady's nightcap slipped down over his eyes, and the wolf tripled and fell flat on his nose. Yes! Quick as a flash, Little Red Riding Hood ran to open the window before he could get up. "Help! Help!" she cried at the top of her voice. "Save me from the wolf!" There was a young woodcutter walking nearby. He knew all about the wicked wolf, so he always kept a sharp lookout. He heard the Little Red Riding Hood cries for help and ran to the cottage. It was all over so quickly that Little Red Riding Hood could scarcely believe it. The big bad wolf lay dead, killed by a single blow of the brave woodcutter's axe. "Don't cry, Little Red Riding Hood," the woodcutter said kindly. "You are safe now." "But he has eaten Grandma," sobbed Little Red Riding Hood. Just then, out of the dead wolf stepped out Grandma. Yes, the greedy wolf had swallowed a whole, so she was quite all right. As the woodcutter took Little Red Riding Hood home, she told him how she had met the wolf. It was a crafty old wolf that won, said the woodcutter. Now promise me you won't go through the woods on your own again. I promise, said Little Red Riding Hood. And thank you for saving me. She smiled. That's the end of today's story. Let's go to the moral of the story. The first one says, do not trust strangers. Don't talk to strangers. Yes, especially when you're on your own. Don't talk to strangers. You cannot trust them. The second one, do not share your personal information with strangers. Don't tell strangers where your mom's key is. Don't tell strangers where your mom works or where your dad works. Don't tell strangers where you live, okay? Do not share your personal information, and do not walk on a lonely path without an adult, especially when you're told not to walk that way. Do not. Number 4, call for help when you are in danger. When you're in danger, don't try to help yourself. Ensure you call for help. Thank you for listening. I hope you enjoyed the story. I hope to come your way again next week. Remember, tell mom and dad to subscribe to our YouTube channel, The Flourishing Treasures, for more videos. And if you want us to conduct the online classes for you, you can call these numbers. I love you. Bye.